Have you always wanted to learn to draw, but you're scared to pick up the pen? Well, I think leaves might just be the answer. They look lovely on the page, and drawing them can be very relaxing, and that's what our video today is all about. Hi guys, welcome back. My name is Shada. So if you've been around here for a minute or two, then you know that I love to draw flowers and leaves. I find leaves to be an especially sort of relaxing and meditative subject matter, and I love to use them to adorn my bullet journal because they look nice and they're a lot of fun to draw. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. We'll go through some leaf drawings. This is part tutorial and also just part relaxing and meditative process. So if you want to draw along with me, I encourage you to do so. So we'll warm up and get started with a very basic leaf shape. I begin with a curving line for the stem, could be any length, and a leaf on top, and the leaves are basic oval shapes, but you can bring them to a bit of a point. You can add a line down the center if you like. You can add more branches and stems going off in other directions. You can wiggle or shake the pen a little bit as you draw those leaves to make the lines a little less bulbous and cartoony and make them just a touch more realistic. And that's exactly what I'm doing. And you can continue to lengthen that stem, and you can really make this one any size you like. The next one I call a little seeded eucalyptus, and I begin by doing these tiny little branches with little seeds, and then I start adding small oval shaped leaves, both still very small, and as I go down the length of the stem, the leaves get a little bigger, and I might add more leaves there. They don't have to be in perfect pairs. You can draw them in 2s or 3s, and some might be thinner because they're on an angle, and some are wider because they face the viewer. And of course, you can continue to add these little seeds wherever you think you need some. And at the tops of the branches, the leaves tend to be a little smaller and they get a little larger as we go down the branches. You can tuck leaves in behind other ones, and that gives a nice realistic look, I think, when some of them overlap and cross in front of one another. And again, this one is done whenever you feel it's done. Next, let's do a simple fern. So start with that branch in the center. There's a couple little leaves on top. And then we do 2 branches out to the side, and they have little pairs of leaves. And we continue to add branches, and every time these pairs of branches get a little longer, and there's 1 extra pair of leaves. So you go from, 2 pairs of leaves to 3 pairs of leaves to 4, and so on. And the leaves and the branches get a little bigger, the branches get a little longer, and the leaves get a little bigger. The pairs of leaves get more numerous, and that is how the fern comes together. Now I've made mine sort of rounded. The leaves are very round, and I'm coloring them in a little bit, and that's just a choice that I've made. Next, we're going to do this one I do over and over. It's these oval shaped leaves, these little scraggly leaves I call them. I shake the pen or I wiggle the pen as I draw them. They come to a point, and I add these tiny little berries, and each little berry has its own stem, and I just do a little dot of the pen so it's very delicate. And this one is wonderful for filling space in a bullet journal. It looks very fine and very pretty, but it's really a lot of fun to draw, and you can't overthink it. It's just you start adding leaves and you add more branches, and a branch goes off this way and that way, and you tuck 1 leaf in behind another, and then you can continue over here or over there and keep adding those little berries, and you just keep filling in space. This one is an amazing space filler, and I've used it for many weekly layouts and habit trackers over the course of the last year. Next, I'm going to do some of the most basic leaves or branches that you can, and what I want to demonstrate is just how changing the color or the shape or the size can really add interest and can change up your leaves. So this is that slightly curving line, and then you just do pairs of oval shaped leaves all along the length. but by simply making the leaves a little larger or a little smaller, by making them extra round or extra pointy, or coloring them in completely, or shading them in on one side, or adding lots of veining, you can really change this up. So if you need a new leaf for every page of your bullet journal, I promise you, you can make that happen. Personally, I love adding line shading to my botanical contour drawings. The seeded eucalyptus looks good with just a few broken lines on each side of those leaves. It really brings it to life. And although I'm normally working in pen so that you can see it really well, it's never a bad idea to start these leafy illustrations in pencil. And the eucalyptus is a great example of one that benefits from that, because you draw the stem first and those leaves, they go right over the stem, they cross in front of it. So by giving yourself that line and then going over it in pen once you've done the pencil guide, I think that's quite helpful. So this is sort of your regular eucalyptus, and the leaves, some of them are angled away from us so they look quite thin, some are facing us so they're quite round, and these are just a lot of fun to draw. I'll add a little bit of line shading to them as well, but the line shading is totally optional. If you prefer a simple contour drawing, which is just the basic outline, stick with that. For the next one, I'm just doing these big oval-shaped leaves. These larger ones are great for filling space, and you can draw them in pairs or threes or fours. And I'll just do some simple veining, and that adds a nice element of detail. Here's a cute one that we've done many times on the channel. You start with the line for the stem, and then you create what look like little pairs of leaves, but then you use that as your guide and you go around them, making this sort of scalloped edge leaf that looks a little bit like an oak leaf. I think my sketchbook practice piece is coming together here. I'll continue adding some leaves of different shapes and sizes to complete the page, and then we're going to move over to the other side, and I want to do sort of like a fern. This one is just another variation on that very basic, we start with the stem in the middle and then pairs of oval-shaped leaves. These are not perfect ovals. They're a little bit wonky. They're a little bit ragged on the edges. And the fact that they grow outward from that stem at almost a 90-degree angle gives you just yet another leaf design that looks different. Just the angle of the leaves and the stem can really change things up. And I'm coloring them in so that they're quite dark and I get a nice bit of contrast. Next, I want to do this big funny leaf. It's almost like a feather shape. Again, start with your stem in the middle, and then you're just going around and doing those toothy edges. If you need to, do a pencil guide first and then add the teeth. And if you want to add some line shading, you can do that as well. And I think it looks really pretty. This next botanical design is a great example of doing a pencil guide first. I'm doing these little leaves in threes, and I've just drawn them as ovals, but then you can see I'll use the oval leaf shape as my guide when I come back in pen and I want to add some teeth to the edges of these leaves. So I want these leaves to be a little more detailed, not just the basic oval. And of course you can do this in pencil first, draw the oval, then add the toothy edges in pencil and then go over it in pen. Or if you feel like me, you want to skip right to pen, of course that's fine as well. But giving yourself that guide in pencil, I think really helps with this one. Not that these leaves need to be perfect, but it just helps get the whole overall design done first. You know where everything is going to be on the page, and then you can focus on the little wonky shapes of each leaf. And I'm adding a bit of veining to these leaves, and then some of them are going to be on an angle, so there's just a half leaf, and that adds a nice element of detail as well. Another idea, if you're trying to think of ways to vary your leaf illustrations, is to do a design that incorporates two different types of leaves on the same branch. So for this one, I'll do these tiny oval leaves with a little line in the center, and then I'll also do these really tiny, almost straight pairs of leaves. So the two come together and it creates a leaf or branch that's just a little bit different, and all I've done is incorporate two different leaf shapes. Actually, changing the leaf shapes can be so powerful, and you'll see as I draw this fern, it looks quite different from the first fern that I illustrated on the other page. And all I've done is make the leaves a little thinner, a little smaller, maybe a little finer, and it just gives me such a different illustration and such a different type of illustration. Some of my favorite leaves to draw are just the most basic, and I think you'll see that over and over again in my journals. Just these delicate, pointed, oval-shaped leaves. Some can be colored in, some can have a little bit of line shading, some can be just a basic contour drawing. You can work tiny, you can work large, you can change up the size and shape, and I think there's just no end to the combinations that you can come up with. Today, what I'm doing is mostly drawing just from my imagination. As I said, this is kind of a relaxing, meditative process where we're just drawing to draw, just to, do the lines and feel your pen on the page and make funny leaves. But what you could do if you want to take this further is get some library books about different plants, and you could draw the plants that you see. So in that way, you're not having to come up with the ideas yourself. But I do think there's something really fun about inventing these leaves on your own and just drawing whatever comes into your mind. The branches can go in any which way, the leaves can be any sort of size or shape, and you just don't want to overthink it too much. It really becomes just all about the act of doodling and not about the finished product. I don't know what it is about these shapes and forms, but I am just never tired of drawing leaves. I like to think about, well, this one's kind of going to be a little bit like a pine sprig, or this one's sort of like eucalyptus, but basically I just invent things in my mind and try to have fun with it. If you are wondering about my supplies, the sketchbook that I'm working in is actually a Canson watercolor paper sketchbook. The paper has a nice tooth and I really enjoy working on it. And then I'm using my Pigma Micron fine liner, the 05 nib. Well guys, that's it for me. I am all finished this leafy masterpiece. I hope you enjoyed drawing along with me. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you soon with a new tutorial.